What's up, Rams, and welcome back to Cam's Corner. I'm your host, Cameron Evig. So like I told you last week, the NBA playoffs are finally in full swing, and now that the play-in games are over, and after covering what I thought about the first round matchup last week, I thought it was the goodest time of any to give you a quick rundown on how I think the rest of the playoff games are going to go, especially after seeing the first game in every series. So that's coming up on Cam's Corner, starting right now. Since I was here last week, all of the play-in games have come and gone, and the first game of each series of the first round is over and done with. And for the most part, nothing crazy really happened throughout all of these matchups, besides, of course, the Clippers losing to the Pelicans in the play-in game, mostly because of probably the worst thing that could have happened to LA, happening to them leading up to a one-and-done game with Paul George testing positive for COVID-19 the day before the winner-go-home play-in game. Yikes. Talk about bad timing. But looking past that series of unfortunate events, I think that Game 1 can really shape how the rest of the series goes for these teams battling out in the first round. So let's start breaking things down in Phoenix, and what seems to me is going to be the most lopsided series of the first round, where they're facing off against those New Orleans Pelicans I mentioned earlier. And when you look at this Suns team, I just don't know how New Orleans wins a game. You know, usually I give a team a game or two in a playoff series, but the way that Chris Paul played in that second half of that first game, he was literally unstoppable. He got the switch every time on the pick and roll. Larry Nance couldn't do anything about it. Jonas Valanciunas dang sure couldn't do anything about it. And when you add Devin Booker, who is scoring just as much as Chris Paul is in these games, this is a 4-0 sweep. Phoenix is going to take this series with absolute ease. And now let's move on to our next series, which actually had an upset in Game 1 when the Timberwolves were able to steal Game 1 at FedEx Forum against the red-hot Grizzlies. And this series is going to be a phenomenal one. Two very young teams, not much playoff experience, but the Wolves were able to come out on top in this one. And I don't care what you think about Patrick Beverley. That man is an on-court leader. Even if he's not scoring the most points, you can just tell he gives 100% into every game he plays. The duo of Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns absolutely popped off for 30-plus each in this game, and you didn't get enough out of players like Dillon Brooks and Jaren Jackson. If you're going to beat a streaky team like the Timberwolves are, they got 6 more games to figure it out, do the Memphis Grizzlies. But right now, the Timberwolves are scoring at will. And on to our next series, it all started in the Chase Center when our hometown Nuggets took on the higher-seeded Warriors in San Fran. And this game for Nuggets fans was a hard one to watch. Got off to a great first quarter, but slowly the lead started to deteriorate, and it was not off the back of the Warriors. It was off the back of the Nuggets missing every shot that wasn't being taken by the man named Nikola Jokic. So many wide-open kick-out threes were just blatantly missed by Will Barton, Monte Morris, and Austin Rivers. I was losing my mind. Nikola cannot do it all, and when you have a team like the Golden State Warriors with their big three of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and now Jordan Poole, who scores 34 out of nowhere, I don't know how the Nuggets win this series, and it's so hard to say that, but I'll give them a game. I think this is going to go 4-1 in favor of the very, very hot Warriors. And finally, to wrap up the West, we have the Utah Jazz versus the Dallas Mavericks. And I don't know what to say about this series. It's so hard to think about just because the Mavericks are playing the first 2 games without a top 3 MVP candidate in the league, Luka Doncic. Without Luka, the Mavericks are just like the Nuggets without Nikola Jokic. Not a good team. Although you did have Jalen Brunson, you did have Spencer Dinwiddie both step up and try to will this team to a W. It just did not happen with the great shooting out of Bojan Bogdanovic, as well as all these other Jazz players that played well. Even Mike Conley played really well in the clutch for this Jazz team, and I just don't see a way the Mavs win a game without Luka. And now let's shift our focus on to the eastern side of the bracket, where Game 1 of the Heat and Hawks series went the way of the Heat in a surprising dominant fashion. This game was the storyline. Trae Young scored 8 points. Now I can stop talking and you would know why they lost this game, because that is it. You're not winning a single game in the playoffs, or in the regular season for that matter, if Trae Young is scoring eight points. You got good games from people like Kevin Huerter, but that's not going to do it. This game was over at halftime when Miami was up 20. I don't know what to say about this. Without Clint Capella there to hold down the fort in the middle, and with Trae Young scoring 8 points, it's looking very, very grim for Atlanta. The 2 versus 7 matchup in the East is going to be an absolute beauty to watch. The Nets aren't a team to play around with at all, and they play the 2-seed Celtics. Now, this Celtics team came out and they battled hard, and let me tell you, the TD Garden was probably the loudest arena in the first round. It was absolutely deafening in there, especially when Kyrie Irving got the ball and all you heard was boos. But this game came down to the very last shot, as you'll see here in 1 second. And Kevin Durant did not have a great game offensively, did have a good game defensively, besides on this last play where he decided he was just going to leave Tatum open, gets caught looking at the ball. There goes the cut from Tatum. Durant's not in position. The spin layup is good. And game 1 goes to the Celtics. This series is going 7. This series is going to be the best first round series in the NBA playoffs. The series with the Bucks and the Bulls is not going to be the best series in the NBA playoffs. It's actually going to be the most lopsided Eastern Conference series. Like I said last week, this Chicago team is just so overrated. I mean, you look at it, right? You got Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic as your big 3. You expect a lot more from Chicago. And although they did keep it a little bit closer than a lot of people thought they might have, all three of those players had to step up scoring if they were ever going to win this game. All 3 of them did not have a good scoring game. And to beat Giannis Antetokounmpo, you're going to need to have somebody better than Nikola Vucevic or Pat Williams to put on him. I mean, right there you had Alex Caruso on him. For me, there's just no answer on this Bulls team for Giannis. There's no answer on any team for Giannis, but especially this Bulls squad. I see this being a 4-0 sweep. Oh, and the Raptors and 76ers are also in a one-sided series. This series has potential to be a sweep just because without Scotty Barnes, who went down with a very unfortunate ankle injury in that first game, I just don't know how the Raptors can hold up defensively against a team like this, especially if you have Tyrese Maxey coming out and scoring 34 points in the first game of this series. Not enough scoring on the side of Toronto. You would need Fred VanVleet to have a 40-point performance every night, with Pascal scoring 30-plus as well. I just don't see how Toronto does it, especially without Scotty Barnes. Joel Embiid had a field day. James Harden had a field day. Tyrese Maxey had a field day. It was just way, way too easy for this 76ers squad. And although I thought it was a series that the Raptors could potentially come out and win, without Scotty Barnes, there is no shot, in my opinion. And well, Rams, that's all the playoff talk I have time for tonight. But make sure you stick around for Out of Pocket right after this.